Hi there, and with all my upscaled minifigures here, today I'm going to make a start on upscaling my mini loader. And just before we get into building the first part, just a few little bits of housekeeping. First of all, as always, a huge thank you to my channel members. You all really help out the channel greatly. The names of my Big Fig members are listed in the description below, and of course, these are all the bricks of my Mega Fig members. And lastly, with housekeeping, thank you so much for all the hundreds of comments I got on last week's video about the two new colours of Lego Spaceman. I was asking everyone's opinion where gold should go, whether it should be between the red and the orange or the yellow and the orange. And a lot of people will be pleased to know that from all the persuading that you managed to do in the comments, I think I'm agreeing with many of you that because it's a pearl gold colour, it shouldn't really be with the regular colours. And so what I think I'm going to go along with is putting it down at the end here before the white. Lots of people suggested me having him floating above or in a pot of gold somewhere, but I really like to keep him in the lineup. But I do agree that being a pearl colour doesn't quite match him with the regular colours. However, having him down this end next to the white means he's first in line, but he also goes well with the monochrome colours at this end. But then on to the next colour. Last week I told you that the other colour, apart from pearl gold, was going to be dark azure, this colour, as that's the colour that was mentioned in the first leak that I heard from a reliable source. However, since then, several other leaks have said it's not going to be the dark azure colour, it's going to be the dark turquoise colour. And that means not this colour, but this colour. Now last week I was saying that the dark azure colour should go between the green and the blue. But even if that is now dark turquoise, I still think that colour should go in the same place. Dark turquoise is the colour that Bricklink call it, but Lego call it light greenish blue. So it really doesn't make much difference which colour it ends up being. After all, this is still leaked information. You can never 100% trust this until you either see a photo or a Lego press release. However, I had bought parts in dark azure, and so I've now also bought parts in dark turquoise. So it doesn't really matter what colour we get, I've got all my bases covered. As well as suggestions for the gold minifigure to be floating above looking down upon all his subjects. Other people suggested that he should have precedence and be in the front. However, if he's here, he's going to cover up some people behind him. Other people had the opposite view and said he should be back against the wall somewhere, but then if he's back there, these people are going to hide him. And I still want to be faithful to the original set with all the minifigures lined up in a row. So I really think that on the end next to the white is the best place for him to go. And then lastly, I did have quite a few people commenting saying that because I couldn't get this curved brick in gold, that I should get some and paint them. Now I do need these people who commented to know we need to talk quietly here. If you paint Lego or even start talking about it too much, the Lego police do come along and arrest you, so let's be very careful here. I don't want Bad Cop from the Lego movie kicking down my door in the early hours of the morning and searching my Lego studio for paint. I think I've got away with it so far, but we won't mention it again. And so on to building the upscaled mini loader. Now when I did the vote on my channel so viewers could tell me which set they wanted me to upscale next, I made sure that all those sets had a slight challenge in them, and for this set it was obviously the articulated bucket at the front. However, I didn't actually think through how difficult this bucket was going to be. It's held on completely by friction, and you can unclick it and you can see that these pieces click into the notches on the bucket. And when this is upscaled, friction is just not going to be able to hold this together. This bucket is going to be incredibly heavy with all the parts in it, and just having friction to hold it in place, it will just effectively just flop down the whole time and won't actually be able to articulate at all unless you're holding it up yourself. So upscaling is full of compromises, as we saw when I was upscaling my 886 Space Buggy. So I've got the choices between a really good working hinge, but it doesn't actually look that much like this system on the original, or make it look a lot more like this. However, the hinge might not work quite as well. So because I'm still working through ideas on that, I thought I'd start with a minifigure instead. Now because Lego's own upscaled minifigures were the place where this whole project started, I also thought it would be quite fitting to start with a minifigure. And today I'm going to build his head and his construction helmet. Now Lego's own upscaled heads are all built in fairly the same way. However, some of it I feel is slightly over-engineered for stability's sake. So I'm making a slightly cut down version with fewer pieces to save on parts and money. Now all the parts in the head are fairly common, the only ones which aren't are this large yellow curved slope brick, which you can find on Bricklink only in fewer quantities than most other bricks. But as I mentioned in an earlier video, the one part I can't get hold of on Bricklink is this face, so I've bought 6 of them off Lego Pick-a-Brick on lego.com. Now the whole thing is built around this 4x4 stud core, and the first thing I'm doing is getting some of these bracket pieces and adding 2 1x1 plates in the corners. Now these have to be yellow because the face of them won't be seen, but the edges will be. And we need 4 of those, so I've already made the other 3. So we're going to click those around this 4x4 plate, 1 on each side, like this. And then on top, we're going to sandwich them with another 4x4 plate. So that's all those 4 on another plate on top to hold them in place. The next layer is just some standard bricks, and for those in the know, these are pink bricks, so that means I'm going to get a cake afterwards. Now we need to continue making some panels of vertical studs, so I'm going to use these other bracket pieces which hang down, and we're going to make a panel on each side. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and just for stability I'm going to put some round bricks in the corner, just so we've got something else to grip to on the corners. Then to continue these panels up, we're now going to use some brackets, only not the ones that hang down, but the ones that stick up vertically. So we're going to do one on there. I haven't got all white ones, so we're going to have to use a few grey ones too. Like that, and then again I'm going to stick 4 more studs on the corners. So we've got another flat panel to add another plate to. And then after that new plate to go on top, we're going to also add a couple of 2x4 bricks. So now we've got a flat panel on top with all these panels down the sides. Now this is one of the parts where I think that LEGO over-engineer the head themselves by using some old LEGO City wheel arch pieces, but I think it's much easier to use some 2x6 and some 2x2s. So I'm going to put a 2x2 plate on top of there, another 2x2 on top, and that's a lot cheaper alternative to what LEGO use. And then after making 4 of those, one goes on each side holding all those bracket pieces together. So we've got one there, one on the second side, one on the third side, and one on the fourth side. So they're looking good all the way round. Next we're going to give him his chin and his neck using a lot of these 1x2 curved bricks. So first of all we're going to put 2 of those on each side like this. So 2 there, slope, flat side facing upwards, and the curve going down onto his neck. Whiz through that, 2 on that side, 2 on the third side. And then last but not least, back of the neck. Then underneath we're going to use 4 of these 1x4 curved bricks. So 1 on each side again, 2, 3, 4, and you can see this is looking pretty much identical to the LEGO one, only using different pieces which are a little bit cheaper. Now the bricks used in these corners don't have to be yellow, as they don't actually get seen. However, sometimes you do get slight glimpses of the colour along these edges. So even though it's not 100% necessary, I thought I would use yellow ones anyway. So we've got a 1x2 snot brick there. Now these ones in the corners, they're 1x1s and they've got a stud on 2 adjacent sides. You can't get these in yellow, so I thought the nearest best thing was this yellowish orange colour. But we can add them on all the corners, and even if we see slight glimpses of it, it won't look too bad. So I've put those bricks down both sides of one of these slopes and also down both sides of another one. Then those pieces go on opposite sides of the head, one on this side and one on the other. And if you look and compare it to the LEGO one, although we don't have these wheel arch pieces going all the way up to the top, I still think those 2x2s in the middle are just going to give it enough stability. They're not going to fall off or go anywhere. So I think that's quite enough to hold them in place. And again, saves a little bit on pieces and cost. Now underneath, we're just going to add 4 of these cheese slope pieces. So 1 on each corner of those snot bricks we put. So 2 there, and then if we turn the whole thing round, we have 2 on the other side, like that. And then the very last thing to do is to add the last 2 slopes. So on this face here, we're going to add this plain slope, like that. And then on the other side, the all-important face, and all of a sudden he looks like a minifig. Now these two look identical in build, however what you can't tell on camera is that I can feel that mine is actually considerably lighter than the LEGO version, and it just used a few more readily available pieces. And then onto the hat, and we've got a lot of lovely red LEGO pieces. Now I did say that upscaling quite often involves quite a bit of compromising, and on our construction hat we do have these 8 ridges running down the outside, and I did really want to reproduce these. However, I've only managed to do it with 4 of them and not the 8. However, I hope you won't be too harsh with me in the comments below, because even when we look at LEGO's own upscaling, when you look at their upscaled blue helmet, it really doesn't look anything like this one. To start with, the brim of the original hat is a lovely curved shape, and LEGO's is completely flat underneath. On the original, the curve finishes at the back, whereas LEGO's one has this large flat shelf at the back. Now I do realise that a lot of this was because of the hinge mechanism, so you could open it up and put the minifigure inside, but I did just want to show that small compromises don't ruin the overall effect of the entire set. So for the construction hat, I'm going to start off with this 2x12, and we're going to have some 4x4 curved plates to go on the ends, and then 2 4x4 squares in the middle, and then 2 more 4x4 curved plates to go at the end. And we've got this nice kind of oval shape for the basis of our hat. And looking from above, I thought that was a fairly good match for the actual shape. Next, we're going to add a whole bunch of 2x2 and 1x2 jumper plates. So this is what it looks like before, this is what it looks like with the 2x2s added, and this is what it looks like with the 1x2s added. And it's at this point, I have to also show you another slight compromise. With all these jumper plates on, it holds all the pieces together, apart from these two at the front. So we do also have a slight compromise later on to hold these two pieces in place. And then just a few more jumper plates before we can move on to the next layer. Firstly, 4 more 1x2s, and they go on the sides there, and then 2 more 2x2s at the front and the back. One here and one there. And then the layer that allows for all those offset ridges is complete. Next, I'm going to smooth off all these studs to give it a nice studless finish. Now on these corners, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a 4x4 curve, and then a 3x3 curve, and then a 2x2 curve. We're going to do that on both of them. I'm going to add a 2x2 at the front, and then more of these 4x4 curves at the back. One there, and one here. And then lastly, to fill the gaps on the sides, I've got a 1x2, and then a 1x1 just inside it. And I'm going to do the same to the other side, with a 1x2, and a 1x1, and that's the entire base layer complete. Next, I'm going to add some 1x4 plates down the middle. So we've got one at the back, one at the front, and then one on each side, like that. And then what I'm meant to be doing next is filling in the gaps with some more 4x4 curved plates. However, I just tried to put one on, and as you can see, they don't fit. Now they happily fit on this 2x2 jumper plate here, however these ones are in the wrong place, and I've just been back to my Lego Studio file and it says they connect fine. And I suppose that is the perils of building this in Lego Studio first, ordering all the parts, and then not putting it together live in the brick until I film it on camera. But it's not the end of the world. What I'm going to do is going to remove these 1x2s and strengthen it with some tiles instead, and then they will just sit on the 2x2 jumper plates. And with that minor crisis averted, I'm now going to add the 4 curved plates. And that hopefully starts to show the curved part of the construction hat and the 4 ridges. Then for the ridges of the hat, I'm using these 1x4 by 2 2/3 high curved bricks, and each of those are going to sit on the 1x4 plates that we put down earlier. So one on the side, the back, the front, and the other side. And then we're going to fill in the gaps with dome bricks. So this is the same part that Lego used in the Octan upscaled minifigure, and they're 4x4 by 2 2/3 high curved dome pieces, or quarter dome pieces, and they're going to fill in the gaps in the middle. And with those quarter dome pieces in place, I hope you can see the ridged effect, which I was trying to replicate from the original helmet. And then to finish off the top, we're going to add a jumper piece on the front and the back, so one there and one there, so they join up in the middle. And on the sides, we're going to add just regular 1x1 tiles, one on that side and one on that side. And then in the corners, we're going to use these 1x1 quarter tiles, so one of each of those on the quarter dome pieces. 2, 3, 4, and then we just need to do a little bit of straightening up. And with all those pieces nice and straight, the last thing to do is to finish it off with a 3x3 round tile, and that just clicks on the top and gives us the round effect that they had on the original one. And with the construction hat finished, all that needs to be done is to be put on top of the head. And this is where I need to show you how I managed to hold these pieces in place. What I've done is I've added 2 2x8s underneath and 2 2x4s on the top, and the head is going to sit just about there, and these 2 pieces are now being held on by the plates underneath. So if we add this onto the top of the head like that, you can see, yes, slight compromise. We probably going to need to sort out something about in these corners, but this wasn't planned. I only worked it out as I was filming that these pieces weren't going to be held in place by any studs whatsoever. So it's a first for me in my 200 and something videos that I've made. This is the first one which hasn't gone to plan while filming. So please bear that in mind and be gentle with me in the comments. So if we do a little bit of head comparison, here's the Lego one and my one. We give them a small rotate. You can see how much larger this one with the very wide brim with all that workings under the top of the hat going on. And we turn them around to the back and then the other side and back round to the front. So what I'm going to do is show you the original Lego minifigure with his head on, and then I'm going to swap it for my new one. So here's my 3 upscaled minifigures, and here's obviously the original one with his head, and if we pull his head off, we can replace it with the new one. And there we have an upscaled minifigure with a construction hat. And so by putting the construction worker's head and hat on top of our minifigure, we can compare the original with the upscaled version. So I'm really pleased that I managed to reproduce these ridges on the hat. It is sad that I couldn't think of a way of that I could do all 8 of them rather than just the 4, but like I said, upscaling, you do have to make some compromises. But of course, that's not to say if you can think of a way that I could reproduce this more accurately, please do let me know in the comments, and if it's a viable solution, I'll give it a go. The next part that I am really looking forward to doing is obviously this vest. Now this is a sticker in the original, and I could bail out and make this with just a sticker on a brick-built vest, but however I think I'm going to give it a go at making these chevrons out of bricks. And then after the minifigure, moving on to the mini loader itself, a lot of these parts are going to be fairly easy to do, as we've done very similar parts in the 886 space buggy already. I've obviously already made this wheel piece, although it was in grey. We've already made the steering wheel too, and I've also already made various plates. The set has 2 1x1 round bricks, and that's obviously the same piece that we used in the blaster on the space buggy. However, now they're not transparent grid, I'm not going to have to make these out of cylinder pieces. I can brick build them like everything else. So do let me know what do you think about this in the comments below, but like I said, please be kind as this video didn't go quite as planned. If you've liked what you've seen, please do give the video a thumbs up, and if you want to support the channel, you could also consider becoming a member. But whatever you do, please make sure you subscribe for more Lego videos.